running for mayor, phone never stops ringing.
I bet.
It's like 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm getting messages. I'm like, what the hell you need at 2 o'clock in the morning?
You guys are watching the Y3 podcast, always brought to you by Modern Party Art, as you see right here on 268 Bowden Street. Go to them for all your art, entertainment needs, birthday parties, whatever you need a venue to do an event in. You can do that right here at modernpartyart.com.
Yeah, and check them out, man. This spot's pretty cool.
Word. So I got Mike Bianchi. He is running for mayor in the upcoming elections in the city of Boston. So anybody and everybody, give him a round of applause, you know. So I just got some questions. We're gonna dive right into it, bro.
Yeah, let's go.
So these questions are a mix of some questions I had, along with some questions from the community.
All right.
Most of them from the community. So we're gonna get right in. What's your upbringing? Where do you grow up at, and what made you want to run for mayor?
So my upbringing was basically just city kid. You know, my father grew up here. I grew up here. My son's growing up here. You know, I was born in Boston. I lived in Rosendale outside of Archdale Projects over there until I was 7, and then we moved back into my father's mother's house. So my grandmother's house. Yeah. And we were basically there. I've been there since.
So you right from the thick of shit. Like you in this.
You know, so I went to South Boston High. Then I moved over to BCLA, and just been out here. Had a kid at 19, sorry, and just been out here. You know.
Word.
And why I'm getting into politics is because I'm like seeing, especially after the whole Marty Walsh era, I hit my boy up. I used to be able to walk down the street and say hi to him, see him on the corner. Now it's like, oh yeah, man, I'm in Worcester. Like, man, how'd you end up in Worcester? Oh yeah, they had a redevelopment plan. They tore down the housing, you know? And it's like, man, that ain't cool.
Yeah, actually, my best friend, her mom, lived in the new develop they're doing across from Ruggles.
Yep.
Yeah, she lived there for years, and they tore that shit down.
Yep.
And now she has no choice but to move. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that shit happens. It's real. Affects a lot of people.
And they're planning to do more. They're planning to build those luxury dormitories right out in front of Ruggles Station.
Yeah.
Like literally right out in front of it.
That's crazy.
They just submitted the plans 2 days ago. It's crazy.
Yeah. So as a community member and as a mayor, right? As a potential mayor, what's like your biggest concerns as a community member and as a potential mayor?
Gentrification. You got. This is our art. This is our culture. This is who we are. We make Boston what Boston is.
Right.
Ain't nobody else. Everybody else flew here. We grew here.
Right.
You know. This is our plant. This is our tree of life. You know, and they cutting it down.
Right.
And they making paper out of us.
Right.
You know, so it's like we gotta stop the gentrification, because you talk about I'm sure you had people that you was calling like auntie and shit, like that was like your neighbor.
Right.
You know, but they're destroying whole entire communities.
At this point, we all do. Yeah. At this point, we all know somebody that was forced out of something. You look what they're doing with Fields Corner, with South Bay.
Mm-hmm.
What they did with South Bay is it's dope over there. Don't get me wrong, the AMC and all that, right?
It's dope if they included us.
Right, I was just gonna get If
they included us,
exactly.
It's one thing,
exactly.
Right? So if you're gonna tear down a housing project, right? And it's like, all right, we're gonna reface this housing project. Yeah, that's dope. You know, the projects are messed up. You know, they're falling apart. This, that, the other. We're living in grime under slumlords and everything. You want to redevelop this? That's dope. The first thing that needs to be taken into consideration: do you have the housing space in Boston to move those families out of that project so that they can still stay in Boston until that project is complete, and then they should be able to still move back into their new home
at the same fucking rate.
Yes,
at the same rate.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
And then if you want to add an extra 20 stories of luxury condos on top of that, that's all good and great. Right? But there's no reason why we have to displace the family out of the city.
Right.
You know? And it's not like we don't have the money.
Right. That's my biggest thing. Like, it's there, bro.
We're one of the fastest growing metropolises in the United States.
Yeah.
One of the fastest growing metropolises. You know, we have exploded at an exponential rate, but our community is falling.
Right. And like I was saying to you before we even got on camera, was the community is not exempt from these issues, right?
Yeah.
Like granted, like yeah, like it does. There's certain shit that's out of our hands.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's certain shit that's out of our hands, but then there's also the things that we don't do. Like there sometimes there are meetings in community meetings.
But see, though, we're not taught those things.
Right.
We're not taught those things in school. We're not taught those things outside of school.
Mm-hmm.
So right here, what you guys are doing here with this spot, you're teaching that. You know, you're showing that this does exist, right? But you're still gonna face struggles, just like with the zoning, right? That we was talking about. You know, there's still things that hold you back from even being greater, because, you know, if you were a big development company, they'd rezone this whole block and you could build whatever you wanted.
Right.
You know?
Right.
But because you guys are who you are, even though you own this, they're going to tell you, you could go to the zoning board 1,000,000 times over and they'll just be like, nope, because we don't have people like us in office. So it starts with our education. It starts with us getting involved in politics and getting the right people in that are going to stand up for us.
Right.
Not politicians, because they look at this like a job. They're not representatives.
Right. It's
You
a
know?
job, and as more so, like Domingos was saying, who was running for Boston City Council at large. He was saying for him, like, it's not a job. You know what I mean? He's like, I make my own money. It's not a job for me. He's like, this for me. This is life for me. You know what I mean? Because at this point, you too, me too, we got kids. I have kids. I have a 2-year-old son. I have a lot of interest in how Boston Public Schools is going to develop. I have a lot of interest in the streets that I grew up on, that there's shootings every day. You know what I mean? I have a lot of interest in the community centers that I went to when I was a kid isn't open anymore. You know what I mean? So I have a lot of concerns like that, because now it's time for me to raise my kid, right?
Yep.
In the same, and I don't want to do it in the same environment that I had to be raised in.
Yeah.
And it's a constant cycle.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like you said, we're not taught these things. You know what I mean? We think politics and we're like, oh, whatever. I guess that would take me right into my next question, is what are some things we can do as a community, right, to bring more awareness and get youth involved in like town hall meetings and community meetings, and a meeting on whether or not they're gonna tear that building down and put up a big ass new condo over there. You know what I mean?
So it's a lot of awareness, and that's basically why I'm running. It's not to win. My whole campaign was basically based off of voices, not votes, right? Because too often we see all the politicians come out, right, when it's time to get their vote, right? And then they go into their office, they sit comfy with $200,000 a year coming into their pocket, you know, and they do whatever they want to do, right? So it's about voices, not votes. And it's like, I know I'm the long shot, you know what I mean? Look, man, my skin color is this, right? I might have grown up in the same struggle as everybody else, but a lot of people's minds is clouded by skin color right now. And it's like, I ain't trying to take nothing away from what's happening here as a historic moment for Boston, right? My whole purpose is to bring voices and awareness to our community because I grew up in it, you know? And it's like, so that's why it's like, most likely I'm not getting on this ballot, you know, because I'm out there grinding every day from like 6 a.m. to 11 o'clock at night getting signatures, you know, more hard than anybody else is grinding for signatures right now. And I'm getting tons of love. I'm out on Blue Hill Ave. People are dapping me up. They're like, yo, man, Mike, it's great to see you out here. I love what you're doing. And I'm telling them, like, you get involved in politics. I'm out there handing out the voter registrations. It's like, nah, the change starts with us. Right? Start being aware. We got to be aware of what's going on around us, because if we're not aware and if we don't start speaking up and if we don't start making right decisions, right, we're all going to be gone. I mean, look at
see it every day.
Look at Ink Block, man. They built that thing like a fortress. Right. You can't even look on the inside of that. I walked over there to see if I could get a couple signatures just for like laughs and giggles, right? And they was asking me if I was gonna park their car for them. And I'm like, yo, I'm trying to run for mayor. What are you talking about? You know, like they're in a whole separate world from us. We don't even see it.
Whole separate world,
We don't even see it. We're not involved with it at all. So we need to start lifting ourselves up to get into that world, because that's our world. That's built on our soil.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think, like, because like I said, any question I'm asking you here, I can ask it myself. The community is never exempt from any of the same questions that we can ask a politician. And so, like, I'm trying to sit here and think, even when I was a teen, or even as a young adult now, who's just recently, maybe a couple years ago, with the whole Trump thing, getting like kind of starting to educate myself about politics and things like that, and how it could really change things within our communities. But that being said, like, I'm sitting here trying to think as you're talking, like, of what ways can we develop some type of program, some type of free this or that brings awareness to it, right? We can do stuff like a freaking huge cookout at City Hall, right? That people come to, and just off that, bring awareness to the topic of voting, of being in it. You know what I mean?
That's why we need to teach it. That's why finance and stuff like that is so important in our school systems, right? Because when we start with our youth, we start to break that chain, right? So we, like you were saying, how things kind of go full circle, right? The things you teach your kid right now, like right now I'm inspiring my son, I'm inspiring my nephew, I'm inspiring my niece, right? My niece handed me a piece of paper the other day and was like, "Uncle, can you sign this for me?" I was like, "Yeah, what do you need a signature for?" She was like, "I want to become mayor too." And I'm like, "Hell yeah, that's dope."
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, even if you just get out there and do this, and you go walk the streets like I'm walking the streets with my son, building that confidence for him to go and talk to those people, right? Even if you ain't gonna win, because I ain't gonna win, I'm not even gonna make the ballot, because they had an army of people out there collecting signatures paid for,
Right.
And it's like, politics are broken. But if there was enough of it, if it was me and you and your neighbor, and we was all out there collecting signatures, and we're all spreading the same message, look, this is the movement, I'm one person. Me and you, we on the same page, now we're two.
Right.
You get your neighbor, we're three.
Right.
And you start building your community like that, where it's like, yo, we're gonna rush the ballot. We're gonna get on that ballot.
Word.
And then the more the community sees us involved, like so many people coming up to me, they're like, "Yo, this is dope. Like, why are you running for mayor? Like, you're just a regular city kid." And it's like, that's why I'm doing it, because you can do that too.
Right.
I want you to go to that town hall meeting. We could throw the events, but how many people is actually going to go to one of those events? Right. Unless there's free food. But we're so disenfranchised by politics. We don't even, you talk about politics, they're like, fuck politics.
Right. I'm good. Mm-hmm.
That's why, like, when you're saying politician, I ain't a politician, I'm a representative. I want to represent. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to elect someone that's going to represent your community, not be a politician for your community.
Right.
Dope.
So I have this question. This is a long little thing right here. Basically a Facebook user watched your video, your campaign video.
Yeah.
And they saw that you want to stop gentrification. They just, I guess we kind of did just talk about this, but they wanted to know, how do you plan on attacking that? What are some things that this says you, but I'm gonna put we, because this is all, like I said, no one's exempt from these questions. Some things that we think the community can take, some steps that we think the community can take now to stop gentrification happening in Black and brown communities. We was just talking about it, awareness, education.
As a community, right? So as a community, we're stronger. When we're more than one person, we're stronger. So if you wanted to stop gentrification now, right? As a community, we need to start thinking as a community. We need to hit up everybody inside our building, like say you in a 3-story building, and be like, "Yo, you know what? We're gonna pool your money together.
Right.
Work together. Buy that property."
Right.
Yeah, properties are outrageous. We can't do it on our own. But if we work together, we can start to buy back.
Come together,
Boston.
create an investment group.
Yeah. And bang, start buying that property out.
Yep.
Right? Don't sell that property out to Joe Schmo or the big developer that wants to redevelop a whole block. Be the little house with the fucking tower over it.
Right.
You know?
And it
Stand
goes back
your
to what we was
ground.
talking about with the public school system. And so obviously the majority, I think it's like 75% of Boston public kids are kids of color, right? Are kids of color. So when you're talking about generations of setting them up, I get not so much for failure, but setting them up for failure.
No, they
nonetheless.
set us up to be indentured servants, man.
Yeah.
Indentured servants. So one, our teachers aren't even given the tools that they need to teach, right? We're so hyper focused on MCAS, right? That's all that matters because it's a requirement to graduate, and it don't teach us nothing, right? They've taken away trades which give us opportunities to think outside of the box, opposed to going to college. You could become a woodworker, you could become a mason, and those people are making $45 an hour inside a union.
Yep, and they're so concerned about pushing us into the
college system.
You know, and then
it's the cycle. We get in debt, right? We have to work to pay off our debt. We work minimum wage jobs. We have to live on reduced housing. We have to depend on them to provide us housing.
Right.
We have to depend on them to give us our health care. We have to depend on them for every single thing in our life. So we're taught to just be subservient, and that's why they look down on us. You don't even see none of their campaigns out here. How many campaigners? How many campaigners have you seen? Have you seen Kim Janey or
Kim Janey? She's not stepped foot one time on Bowdoin Street.
You know, but even any of her paper collectors.
Yeah.
Have you seen Michelle Wu's paper collectors? They have armies. They hired like 50 people each. They got their 3,000 signatures in 2 days. They wasn't out here. I was out here. That's why I was getting love out here, because no one's seen nobody collecting no signatures out here. You know why it is? Because they know that they can preach whatever they want to our community, right? And we're gonna eat it up because they're saying it. But at the end of the day, they're not out here because most of the people out here aren't registered voters. And they know most of the people out here aren't going to go vote. So where was they? They was in the white communities, you know? They was down in Brighton. They was down in Roslindale, you know? They was hitting up all the Whole Foods markets.
Right.
How many people go into Whole Foods?
Nobody from this community.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm few.
I'm sitting there chilling down in Phil's corner, hitting those people up, like trying to kick some knowledge and get people registered to vote.
Right.
You know, because that's the truth of the mission.
Right. So to put my name, to give you my signature, does someone need to be registered to vote just to give the signature? Mm-hmm. So they need to register to vote first before they can get you the signature.
No. So you could give me your signature and say you weren't registered to vote. I can give you the mail-in register, right? And then as soon as that goes in, then the signature counts for me.
Okay.
You know, but you know that's where it starts. But our schools do teach us to be indentured servants.
Right.
We're taught to do the bare minimum to get minimum wage jobs and be in debt our entire lives and live in a bubble.
Constant cycle, never-ending cycle.
You know, so that's why I'm like, that's why it's like I wanted to get on this platform, right? Build this platform. I wanted Kim Janey, I wanted Michelle Wu to hear me. I wanted them to be like, yeah, you know what? We are going to bring finance back, because you know what? Mike Bianchi's talking truth, you know? Yeah. And if the people stand behind it, it's like, okay, yeah, no, we do need to get finance back. We do need to get trades back. We do need to get art back.
Right. They took art from every school. There's no art. You can't go to one Boston public school.
No, so they're the schools with AP courses that are majority white, that have the highest scores in the district, they hire their own art teachers to go into those schools. Mm-hmm. So once again, the black and brown communities being disenfranchised.
Yeah. And then when you have like your schools that are majority white, then you get all these donations and investments from parents and things like that.
It's the donations from parents, and that's because the parents are investing back into the school, and that's where it falls down on us as well. Like, you know how you're talking about us as a community, right? How often do we invest in our school system?
Right. Never.
We go
rarely.
My kid goes to school. I haven't done no donations, fundraisers for that. You know. Mm-hmm. You know, my nephew, he's in public schools. My niece is in public schools. You know, How often are they doing fundraisers? And if they are doing them, how often do I actually participate?
Right.
You know, so it's like I have to ask myself that question. It's like, damn, I'm contributing to the problem here.
Right.
I got to be more involved. We got to be more involved in our kids.
Right, for sure.
You know?
For sure. Like I said, you know, and I have a special interest in stuff like this because my son's 2 right now. He'll be 3 in June, but...
Have you got him into Countdown for Kindergarten?
I have not. No, we have not.
Have you heard about the program?
Nope.
See?
And it's exactly that. There's no like, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but there's nothing out there, you know, showing me that. Granted, like, I'm grown. I'm an adult.
A little bit of COVID too, because I actually one of the people that's running right now in Josette for District 4. She was working for Countdown for Kindergarten, you know, so I know she was out there handing out flyers. My mom actually works for Countdown to Kindergarten.
Okay.
You know, and they're out here, they hand out flyers and stuff, and, you know, some of the conversations is like, yeah, I'm handing out the flyers, but the people aren't coming, you know? And now their program is in jeopardy of getting cut too, because the attendance is low, but it's for kids that are gonna be aging into school. It's just play groups. And learning about how to get your kid into the school that you want them placed in. Okay. You know, and they set all that up for you.
Good. Good to know. Good to know. So, you know what I mean? And that's why I love doing stuff like this too, because conversations like this produce education and produce, you know, different things that we don't know, right? As the community, anybody that didn't know that will watch it will know now. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So, you know, and it goes on and on. But so now that we was talking about BPS and their budget and how they are budgeting with schools and things like that. So this is another user question. This is going to take me right into what I want to talk about the BPS budget and stuff like that. 60% of students are families from being classed as in poverty. 4,000 BPS students are homeless at some point in the year. Only 22% of black students meet or exceed the MCAS, right? We were just talking about that. Compared to 62% of white students meet or exceed what's expected on the MCAS, which also obviously affects where money goes. What are some ways we can address poverty, resources, graduation rates, homelessness within the black and brown communities in our school?
So first of all, we should be having blanketed setups for our school systems, right?
100% agree.
You know, there shouldn't be a Boston Public School with an AP course that another school doesn't have an AP course. So the reason why you have those disparities is because, so say you have a bunch of kids in 3 different schools, right? And one of those schools has an AP course. What they do is they start taking all of the highest rate kids out of those other 2 schools, and they start filling them into the AP course school, right? And then they get more funding because their school is full, right? And now the percentage is lower for this school of how many students are actually in the school, because this school took all of the best performing students, right? And now their scores are low and their funding's low because their seats aren't full. So it's a double-edged sword. Now they're getting lower scores and lower funding. Now the school's tumbling into a worse space. Our teachers are paying for their own paper.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? What is going on? Where is the money going?
Right.
Where is the money going? Why don't we have an AP course for every school?
Right. Like you said, that blanket system.
You know, there shouldn't be one. And not only that, you look at Boston Latin versus, let's say, English High, right? Boston Latin's predominantly white, right? They're passing MCAS, but they're also getting more funding. Their teachers are stricter, right? They're teaching stuff. They're like, no, this stuff has to get done, right? Now, if you started it at a young age where it was like, no, we have this strict curriculum for every school, You're setting every kid up to be able to be Boston Latin students. Why aren't we holding every high school to Boston Latin standards?
Yeah.
Right? Instead, they're talking about dumbing down Boston Latin so that it's more equitable for black and brown people to get in. Right? Now, isn't that a smack in the face to the black and brown community? Like, we're not smart enough to get in there? Right. No, we're not given the opportunity to.
Right.
It should be a free, instead of an MCAS in the 7th grade, it should be a free Boston Latin test. That should be a mandatory test across the city in every 7th grade classroom. Just to pull all of the best students and make sure that all of them are getting the best education.
Right.
But they don't do stuff like that. Right? Because it is targeted so that they're able to keep these systems in place.
Right.
You know, they don't need to lower the standards. They need to raise the standard in every circumstance, on every school. They need to, if a school is failing, go to that school, figure out what the problem is. Raise money for that school. How much money does One Fund Boston pull in? How much money is all of these colleges making? They got enough money to build high rises. It's like, and they're nonprofit. Right. They're not even paying taxes. You know, start holding them accountable. Be like, yo, you need to get me teachers. You need to get me funding for this school.
Right.
This school's failing. Why aren't our politicians sticking up for our school systems? Instead, they threaten to shut the schools down.
Right.
Is that the productive way of doing it?
Yeah, that's interesting. 2 of the schools I've been to in my life, both in elementary. I went to the John Marshall up here on Westfield Street. And the Gavin Middle School in Southie. I went to both those. Both those shut down. Both those shut down, and they're reclassed as charter schools now.
Yep.
So they're both no longer BPS. Now they're charter schools.
Yep. And now
so
you
instead
have to apply to get into them.
Right. Now instead of figuring out what's the issue with these schools and putting more funding into failing schools as opposed to less funding into failing schools, right? They're failing for a reason. So instead of putting less funding into them, you put more funding into them. You put more resources available to them to get them excelling instead of saying, oh, you're failing? Well, out of here. Oh, you're failing? Out of here. This one's doing great.
You can go over here.
You know what I mean?
You know what I'm saying?
And it's like back to what Domingos had said in our episode we had. He was saying he wants to get people into the fight because what we're doing constantly, and this is another example of it, we're running from the problem instead of addressing the problem.
All the time.
You know what I mean? We've been doing it forever. You know what I mean?
They jump behind the curtain every time there's a problem.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, well, you know, we were doing something about that, but we'll just shut it down and forget it happened.
Right. You know?
This wasn't racist, you know? We weren't holding down black communities, you know? Like, this school doesn't even exist anymore.
Right. Yeah, it's never existed. Yeah, that's what are you talking about,
you know? They got a new name and everything. It's a charter school now.
Right.
We had nothing to do with that.
Right. It's crazy. You know, one of the other staggering stats is like 4,000 Boston Public School students are homeless at some point.
That's crazy.
In the year. And
how do we have anybody homeless in Boston?
Right.
Look at how much they're building. How do we have anybody homeless?
Right.
Like, you're telling me you can't create space for homeless people to live in?
Something.
If you can build Millennium Tower for multi-millionaires, you're telling me that you can't build something for homeless people to be safe in?
And like I said, it doesn't got to look like the John Hancock. It can,
yeah.
You know what I mean? It can be a freaking huge warehouse with bunk beds and, you know, stuff like that. Something, you know, to address the homelessness issue we have. You know what I mean? You go up and down Mass Ave, the issue is insane over there.
I've been talking to a lot of those people out there, you know? And it's like, it's crazy because they're like, yo, no, never once has a mayor person running for mayor come down here and talk to us. Like,
that's sad.
But they're like, they think it's dope because it's like, we're busy telling them what we're gonna do to solve their problems when no one's asking them how they can solve their problems. Right? And one of the big things down there is mental health, you know? And part of the reason why you lead into a life of addiction is because you can't deal with your own mental health because you weren't given the support throughout your whole life.
You're never given the resources to do it.
And you're not given the right support either. They're quick to throw Ritalin in everybody's mouths or Adderall in everybody's mouths, right? But they don't.
As opposed to just getting them a social worker.
Yeah, and working with them.
Yeah, you know what I mean? A social worker that they can relate to at that. Because when I was in school, they had a social worker in my elementary school, but it was some like tied up rich. I can't say rich, but probably, but some tied up like square white guy that I couldn't relate to. You know what I mean? And it's like that in a lot of the schools. And like I was looking at the budget and the new budget for BPS and going into 2022.
Yeah, I haven't looked at it yet, but
$10 million is going into
social
workers for elementary schools.
Yeah,
so there's no budget for middle and high school social workers.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You know what I mean?
I know that they were hiring a social worker in every single school, and it's $10 million.
It's $10 million.
$10 million for every elementary school, huh?
So that's
wild.
And I was like, what the hell? And just before I close this topic out about the 4,000 homeless BPS kids a year on average, right? Stuff like that, like the money's there. It's an easy solution. The person who asked this conversation, I was having a conversation with her, and she was, it's a good solution. I mean, there's no reason why there's not some type of shelter.
Yeah, we need to reallocate funds to make sure that we're able to provide for these people.
Yeah.
You know, that's a staggering number. Like if that like breaks my heart. Like as a dad,
right?
You know what I'm saying?
Right. You know how many times in being in middle school, I didn't get school lunch because I owed $6 on school lunches. You know what I mean? I didn't get school lunch because my bill was $4.25.
Yeah.
So I got a piece of bread and some cheese, but the lunch lady's in the kitchen like eating the food her damn self.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
How you deny a kid fucking lunch?
It makes no sense. You deny a kid lunch. It makes no sense. There's no reason. If I'm in school. There's no reason.
I've seen it happen. I grew up in the Boston public school system.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
My brother Marquis, man, right? He was never able to get the school lunch. My mom would make him a second lunch.
Yeah.
Every day I'd go to school with 2 lunch boxes. One was for Marquis and one was for me.
Right.
You know.
And it's like like you said before, like the funding's there. And for the whole school, the outstanding balance for the whole school for school lunches will be like $200.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And kids won't be eating because of it.
It's not even like it's good food. You go to Europe, man, they give those kids like real food. Yeah. You know, we're fed processed cheese with hormones and all sorts of like.
Right. Never mind Europe. You go 3 towns over and they got salad bars and all type of shit. We get in these packaged lunches that came frozen that they, you know what I mean?
Shipped from who knows where.
Right. Shipped from whatever fucking vendor, you know what I mean? And it
might be like 3 weeks old, but they have so many preservatives in it, it can last forever.
It can last forever, right?
We put that all in our body.
As long as you freeze it, it's fine. And, you know what I mean? Like it's crazy.
Don't let the temperature get higher than 38 degrees and it'll be okay. It'll last 100 years.
Right. Yeah, I can't even tell you how many times when I was in school, I'd done opened the milk and it was sour milk.
Yeah,
you know
that's happened to me a couple times too, man.
I mean, like open the milk and sour milk. You don't get lunch. The lunch you did get was 2 slices of bread, a slice of cheese, and a carton of milk, and the milk was bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you owed $6 on your bill, and we're like nitpicking at these things when the money's there.
The money is there. We just need to reallocate it. I mean, $10 million on social workers. I mean, I think it's great that we're going to get social workers into the buildings. It's really terrible that they're not in middle schools or high schools,
right?
Where middle school is probably the most important time for a social worker.
I didn't have a social worker in my middle school. I didn't have a social worker in my high school. I had teachers I related to and that I could talk to about things, but none of them was ever classified as a social worker.
To go and find you the programs
that I need, the resources that I need, you know what I mean? And not so much me, I had a pretty good upbringing either, but I know I have a lot of friends that was going through a lot of different issues, and you see it all the time, people's going through a lot of different issues, and there's no social worker, liaisons, nothing like that communicate, right? From one level to the next. There should be a social worker in every school at every level, one that is communicating, right? The social worker at school 1, that's an elementary school, should communicate with the social worker at school 2, that's a middle school, like, hey, Mike has this and this and this going on.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean?
So it follows up.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Like,
so follows you through every step of the way. And so basically, so for the people that don't know, right, BPS uses a system for funding. They call it the weighted student funding to determine each school's budget. It's calculated by like the number of students. The number of students attending each school.
Yeah, we were kind of talking about that, where they take all the students, now they got full classrooms, and they got higher grades. Now they're getting all the funding. Yeah. These ones are now half capacity. They're getting low grades, and they're getting no funding.
Right. You know? And then so for the new budget, they're doing something called a soft landing, where they're doing so basically what's known is that the enrollment decline, is major.
I think it's like 18% or something like that.
Yeah, so the enrollment decline is like on a huge uptick with Boston Public Schools, and it's not just because of COVID.
No, this was happening.
But this has been happening before. This has been happening. This is nothing to do with COVID. Everybody like, oh, COVID.
No, COVID. No, this has been happening.
Right, it's been happening.
We've been watching our schools constantly condense. I mean, I went to the Edison, right, in Brighton. That's now K through 8th grade. That used to be just a middle school. Yeah. The whole entire top floor used to be 6th grade. You know, that's how many kids was there. Right. Now they fit a whole
elementary
and middle school into one building.
That's crazy.
Because that's how that's how much our population has gone down.
And you look at a lot of schools are doing that, K through 12. Yeah. How do you have kindergartners and seniors in the same school?
I don't feel comfortable with that, and
it just doesn't. No, it shouldn't. It shouldn't happen. It's not the reason why they broke it.
The reason why they broke it up is because you're going through different points in your life. Like at 5th grade, you know, you're like kind of 6th grade, you're like the bottom of the totem pole, but you're like experiencing different things with your body, with your mental, with your friends, with your connections, with everything that's going on in your life. You're kind of at a different stance. You know, even for ninth graders being in school with seniors, I think is a little extreme, because, you know, like even when I was in school,
you're 13 years old.
Yeah, you're 13, 14, and seniors at 18, 17.
Right.
You know, like totally different playing fields. And I knew freshmen that was dating seniors.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's not cool.
Right. That's what I said. It's totally different environments. There's no reason why a school needs to be K through 12, K through 8. It needs to stay elementary, middle, and high.
I would even drop 9th grade into middle school.
6 through 9.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Instead of 6 through 8. So basically, on the enrollment decline, it's on a spiral, right? Just going down. So this is kind of, again, how they're kind of fucking the black and brown community over, right? As far as education goes and as far as funding into their schools goes. So enrollment in Boston Public Schools dropped, right? And 75% of students in the Boston Public School system are students of color, right? Black or brown students. And so when you're talking about their soft landing that they're doing, where they're only taking 2% of they're making schools' budget exempt to the first 2% of unenrollment decline, which is severely going to affect the black and brown schools, because your schools are 75% black and brown. Not only that, but your decline that you're having in enrollment is majority and heavily concentrated in the black and brown community. So you're going to affect the schools that are black and that are brown, and like you said earlier,
giving them 2%.
Right.
And that's nothing. Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, your enrollment's down 18%. We'll give you 2%.
Right.
We'll exempt you from 2% of that decline.
And even if it was 3%, right?
It should be 100%.
It should
be 100%, without a question. You know, blanket that.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, that blanket. It should be there. There's no reason why, right? Whatever your budget is, right? Just for the sakes of easy math, right? You have $100 and there's 4 schools. $25 should go to each school.
Yeah,
completely.
Yeah,
across the board, like you said, that blanket budget system where.
But also, see though, that's where it's like, now we get into equality, equity. So equality, that would be equality, $25 to each school.
Right.
Now that other school, one of those schools in those 4 schools might have major fundraising though, right? Because of whatever circumstances might proceed to allow them to get that.
Right.
So that school might still be succeeding more, and they might not actually
With the
need
same amount
that.
of funding, right?
They might not need that $25.
Yeah.
You know, so it's more about justice, making sure that every school is getting exactly what it needs, to succeed. Right? Whether that's funding, tools, programs, whatever the case is, right? If a school doesn't have something, it deserves the funding that it needs to be just as good as the other.
As that school,
yeah.
right?
So
the same amount of resources, you know what I mean? Like you're saying.
So there shouldn't be a school in our district that has art classes and a school that doesn't. If if one school's able to bring that fundraising to get art classes, then the city should be stepping up to ensure that the other school is getting the funding that they need so that their students are exposed to enlighten their minds through art.
Right, 100% agree.
You know what I'm saying? So equality doesn't always work. I mean, I'm pretty sure you've seen the thing where they're like, oh, this is equality. You know, you have a little kid standing on a box. You know, you have someone that's a little bit taller, but not everybody gets to see the game.
Yeah,
you know?
Right. I did see that.
You know, so
that's a perfect example too.
It's more about justice, man. We need to make sure that we're allocating the right funds. But when I talk about a blanket, it's not a blanket as in equality in funding for schools. I talk about a blanket as in the programs that are being provided to schools. That no school should be exempt from not having a program. No school, like every school should have an AP program.
Right.
Every school should have art class. Every school should be teaching finance. Every school should have at least one trade in it. I was even talking to a gentleman, they have schools like in Newton where they teach dual languages for the entire time that you're in the school. So he's like, my kids know how to speak fluent Spanish. And they're teaching that in Newton.
Dope.
You know what I'm saying? We should have programs like that here.
Right.
You know?
Right, and it's not in every school. It's not in every school. Like you said, it's in the school. And that doesn't make no sense that certain schools have resources that other schools don't. It just
because they're able to raise money.
Right, in the same system, in the same scholastic system.
And mind you, those schools are getting more money because those schools are taking the best students out of the other schools.
Right. You're leaving the school you're in to go to a good school. Yeah. A good school, right?
They're getting more funding.
And now we're gonna get more funding because we're gonna stay doing good because we took the good kids.
Meanwhile, that school, we'll give you 2%.
Right.
To make up for your losses of that school taking your students.
Right.
And they're still going to get more money because their seats are full.
That's crazy.
You know, where do we draw the line? When do we start actually making equitable choices for our school systems? When are we going to put the kids first? What happened to No Student Left Behind when all they do is leave our students behind?
Right.
Day in and day out, every policy that they have in place for our school system leaves our students behind.
Right, every single day. I'm gonna actually pull up because I actually want to read these numbers. I'm gonna actually pull up before we wrap this up. I have it here, the budget for BPS and where exactly money is going to. So we have $1.4 million to additional daytime custodial staff. $18.5 million for additional supports for school experience and enrollment declines. $6.8 million to multilingual family liaisons who reflect the culture and language of the communities they serve. And $10 million is going to elementary social workers for multi-tiered systems of support for students.
So one thing I noticed about that, right? When it comes to multi-language and cultural differences, right? What one has the least money? The only one that had anything to do with another language or being part of a black or brown community has the least money.
Right, has the least amount of funding out of all those.
We're gonna put $10 million into custodials.
Right.
Sure, we need to keep our schools clean. When I was in school, there was only one janitor to the whole building.
Right.
And that was his job every day, clean the fucking building. How many janitors?
Yeah, we had like 2 janitors my whole school.
We're closing schools down left and right. How many janitors do we need now for our school systems? You know, custodial services. How are we raising that? What was that? Oh no, that was 1.4 million.
To custodial, yeah. So 1.4 million to custodial. So you're putting the lowest to cleaning, but out of the stuff that we're talking here that matters, the lowest is going to the multilingual, the culture. You know what I mean? The lowest is going to that.
10 million, 18 million.
$10 million is going to elementary social workers.
Yeah, but not middle school, not high school. When it's when you really
those
need it.
when you really need it. You know what I mean?
That's when you're going through your cycle.
Yeah.
But that's the hot topic button on out of everyone's mouths right now in this campaign about how we're supporting the culture, how we're supporting multilingual.
Of course,
you know,
that's
but
the hot topic. You know what I mean?
That's the hot topic that they feed us, but that's not the hot topic that they pushing. If you look on the paper,
Yeah.
You know.
I would say it's the hot topic to get in, but once you're in, it's no longer a hot topic when you're in there. You know what I mean?
You know what? Well, we try to help them out.
Yeah,
but, you know,
we did. Yeah, they used that as a we tried. You know.
You know, but a part of it is us, though. You know, we can bring this back. Like, we need to donate to our schools.
Right.
We need to. Why aren't we throwing a fundraiser for our kids' school?
Right.
You know, like shoot, we should be doing that. You know.
Right.
We can't depend completely on the government, but it is the government's responsibility to look out after our children, man.
Yeah, for sure.
They spend more time in school
especially
than
talking about the public school system. You know what I mean?
And they spend more time with those teachers than they do with us at the house.
Yeah.
You know, we're busy working all day.
Right,
we're busy doing this.
Right.
They're spending what, 8 hours in school?
Yeah.
6 hours in school.
For sure. You're at that point you're being raised by the school system.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So, and that's where our breakdown begins.
Yeah.
That's why we're stuck. We're still stuck in the same repetitive circle that we're in right now, is because our kids are basically raised by our school system, and our school system fails us.
We gotta find a way around it, and like you said, it comes down, and I guess on the end note, it comes down to awareness. Building the awareness. Getting involved, education.
Do more for yourself, man.
Yeah.
Want more for yourself.
For sure.
That was Royce the 5'9" when he. I was thinking about Royce and how he was ripping Spider Loc, and I was thinking about it because I was listening to you and Domingos's conversation. You guys were talking about snitching and everything like that, right? And Spider Loc was calling out Trick because he offered money to turn a person in to the police, you know, and he was like, "Oh, you a snitch, blah blah blah. You never." And Royce got on, was like, "Man, you ain't from Detroit, like, want more for yourself. You out here, what are you doing for the kids? Have you done anything for your school, for your kids' school system? You still living at home in your mama's house? Like, man, want more for yourself.
Right.
You still spewing hate. Stop spewing hate.
Right.
Do what we gotta do for our neighborhood, because ain't nobody looking out for us. Let's team up. Let's collab. Let's get together. Let's make this place a multi-million-dollar business.
Right.
You know, let's open up another spot over there. You know, let's get our boy on the block that wants a business. Let's show him. Let's teach him, because ain't nobody gonna come out here and save us.
Yeah, ain't nobody gonna teach it either. So we gotta do it. You know what I mean?
And in a couple of years, man, none of us are gonna be here.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, like another 4 years of this, all of this gonna be redeveloped too.
Yeah.
So
it's gotta be some type of there's gotta be more involved, be at these meetings. You know what I mean? And the thing is, they will purposely not promote.
Oh, they don't promote it because they don't. You know that there's a whole library underneath the Copley Library. There's a whole department down there designated just for scholarships.
That's interesting.
Just to get scholarships, and it's all free public knowledge. You know why they don't promote that stuff? Because they're busy giving that away. Like, the people on the inside of politics know that. Their kids get exposed to that. The people they want to know to get exposed to that get exposed to that. But we don't get that information.
Of course not. There's so much things we're not given the information. That's what I'm saying.
But now you guys know. You have kids in high school, man. Tell them to go visit the Copley Library in downtown Boston. Get those scholarships, man. It's free money just sitting there. You know?
Word. Appreciate you coming on.
Yo, bro, it's been a pleasure.
Definitely. And that is it, y'all. We out of here.